Hello, dear listeners. Just wanted to say that if you are a patron, do make sure you're listening to this episode of the Aftershow via the Patreon app or the Patreon RSS feed, which you can now also connect to your Spotify, apparently, because the full episode is not available on the main feed. The Aftershow is a Patreon-exclusive project where I get to chat with all sorts of very interesting people from around the world who are also patrons of the show. This was a particularly fascinating conversation, I thought, since things, at least from an outsider's perspective, seem to be quite absurd in Germany currently, especially surrounding the topic of Palestine and Israel. There are several aspects at play with the history and identity and nationalism, and this is just part one of the conversation, so there's more to come. If you're interested in this topic, do consider becoming a patron of the show. You'll not only help support it, but you'll have access to a bunch of Patreon exclusive content too. And, before I forget, I certainly wasn't planning to address this topic on this particular episode since it's completely unrelated, but since it came up, I thought I might as well just say very, very briefly that the whole Mergegate situation with atheist broadcaster Thomas Smith, who insisted on defending the honor of new atheism as late as a couple of years ago, it was just a bizarre and unpleasant situation and very, very, very telling in retrospect. Some of you may remember the episodes from around that time. I will link a thread in the show notes too, which you can check out if you want to dive deeper into that whole mess. The Me Too allegations mentioned in passing in this conversation were against Thomas's former co-host Andrew Torres and were made public February of last year. I will also link to an article that discusses it. But I'd like to stress that while the allegations were against Andrew, those who continued to legitimize, downplay, and worst of all, profit massively off of working with someone who there were multiple allegations against are definitely not without blame, because they were told years and years ago, but chose to do and say nothing until it was all being made public anyway. Yeah, that whole scene is incredibly gross and slimy and not the feminists or allies they make themselves out to be. I just wanted to add that to the very brief split-second mention of the allegation so that people had some more context in case they weren't aware. But yeah, it's been pretty disappointing and horrific to see how many in the atheist scene legitimize and protect Me Too creeps right up until the point it's being made public, and how many in their so-called liberal audiences are willing to look past it because it's the in group. No better than the religious groups that atheists often like to complain about for protecting predators in their midst. See also Lawrence Krauss and David Silverman. Anywho, this is all completely off topic. Let's get into this Germany-related episode now. Hello, welcome to the Aftershow. A brand spanking new series, Patreon exclusive, brought to you by Polite Conversations. This is where I'm hoping to get to know you a little better, dear patrons. This will be the place to come hang out for a casual chat. Let's talk about all things woking up and polite conversations and Twitter spaces and whatever else you'd like to discuss. More content, more conversations, more fun, and even more rationality. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the After Show. Today I have a panel of Germans and German-related experts to talk about, well, what the fuck is happening in Germany nowadays? Welcome, Claus. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. We're having a big anti-AfD protest here in my city today that is taking place all over the country. But I think I'm probably using my time better being on this panel.
Well, I'm honored that you are joining us, but I'm sorry that you had to miss that protest.
It's really loud weather out there, so...
Are you here representing the average white German guy, or?
I don't know. I'm here representing some Germans, I guess, but my affinity to Germans has always been a little bit strained for a long time. So there's not much of a change here. I think Germans individually are absolutely lovely. I think it's a great place to visit if you're white. And living here for a little while is also fun. But if you live here long enough, you realize there's a lot of dry rot in the system all over. It looks very shiny. It still functions very well. But the social, political, and economic dry rot is definitely noticeable, at least in my opinion.
And welcome, Ilyas. You are our German Muslim on the panel. How's it going?
Well, it kind of goes as usual. I'm not near any major protest because I'm living in the countryside, at least at the moment. Bit like general frustrating atmosphere, like being half German, half, in my case, Moroccan Arab, is you're on a crossroads.
Oh yeah,
permanently. Yeah.
I can only imagine, especially in the current climate, what that must be feeling like.
Well, it's more frustrating when it comes from presumably center liberal, center left people, and even far left people in Germany, because I don't really expect much from fascists. Right. So I'm kind of fine if they hate me, but it's the animosity which is more subtle and more hypocritical from the other side, which is far more frustrating.
Exactly. No, I know totally how that feels. Generally, even in just the IDW discourse, it's much more frustrating when it's like center left people that are like doing apologetics. So I get you on that. But you're also an academic, right? Like what are you studying? Can you remind me?
I did study contemporary religious studies.
Sorry, did you say contemporary religious studies?
Comparative.
Oh, comparative religious studies. Okay.
I think that's how it's called in the US, at least, because I think in the US, from what I know, they don't differentiate between theology and religious studies, which we do. So it's like the secular study of religion. To say it in easy terms, and I have my MA degree in that, 1 year abroad, currently doing a little journalistic apprenticeship, and I'm thinking about maybe soon starting with a PhD maybe.
Oh wow.
But with studying, I'm done so far.
And you are a patron of a blasphemer like me. I am honored.
I'm actually the most classic blasphemer. Historically, the heretic was the one who has never denounced the faith, but is spreading false teachings.
Well,
I'm more in the OG blasphemers section.
Cheers. Well, welcome then. I'm so fortunate to get to talk to so many interesting people, and I have so many very cool patrons, and this panel is going to be very fun. And last but not least, we have John. How are you doing, John?
Doing pretty well. Thanks, Anna.
How are you on this panel about Germany?
Well, I guess I'm here in a sense to provide kind of a historical perspective. In a certain sense, I have a master's degree in German studies from Rice University from 1997. And for my undergraduate, I lived in Germany for a year as an exchange student at the Universität Tübingen. And I speak German with near native fluency, although I'm probably a little rusty, but I try to keep. I've been trying to keep up on events going on in Germany. More recently, I've been watching some live streams from Erste Deutsche Fernsehen and things like that on my Roku against the AfD, which are heartening to see. But my day job, I'm a public librarian in Southeast Texas and specialize in interlibrary loan. So I have a master's of library science as well. And I tried teaching high school German for a year, but hated that, so got out.
Oh, yeah, wow.
I still very much care about the goings-on in Germany and whatnot, so just here to, if nothing else, ask intelligent questions. So thank you.
And do you have any German background? What drew you to Germany?
A couple of things. My grandmother has some German heritage. She could count to 10 in German, and her grandmother spoke German. We have what we in America call Pennsylvania Dutch background, but that's actually German. But due to
those are Germans that predate Germany, basically.
Yeah, and also because of the anti-German sentiment around World War I, it was kind of a way that our family could get away with saying, "Oh no, we're not like with the Kaiser. We're Pennsylvania Dutch," and the Americans around them would think, "Oh, like from Holland. Okay, you're cool then." Whereas the other Germans in the area are like, "Hey," and so a lot of their sons went off to war to prove their patriotism and whatnot, whereas mine stayed behind and farmed. So. Yeah.
And so is that what the Amish, some Amish communities speak as well?
Yeah. They still speak German, kind of a older form of German, but yeah.
Right. Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, they're basically the same. Amish, Pennsylvania Dutch, Mennonites, they're all same group from different, some come from different regions. They literally come from the northwest corner of Germany, close to where I live. And some of them have kind of weird Northern German dialects, but mostly have old pre-tonal shift German dialects, which makes it sound really interesting.
Yeah, but I guess my main reason was I'm autistic and kind of a weirdo, and in high school I wanted to be different, so I took German because everyone else was taking Spanish. So, and being in Germany was. I enjoyed living there, and as an autistic person, I, in some ways, felt more at home in Germany than I do in the U.S. sometimes. I appreciated German Ordentlichkeit, and just everything made sense. And
what was that? What was that word?
German orderliness and need for order, and I don't know. It just appealed to me as an autistic person. Strangely enough.
That's very interesting. I have never heard that before, but that is very, very interesting.
It's funny. I have a guest family that when my first time I stayed in Germany, I was in Siegen, and my host family was mixed. The husband was German, the wife was British, and when he retired, they moved to England, and I visited them when I came back to Germany for the year abroad, and visited them over Christmas. It was funny because in England, I felt like I had, even though it was a common language, I felt like I had two left feet, and everything was so awkward and strange to me. And I can't adequately describe the palpable relief I felt leaving Britain and crossing back over into the German border and being among the Germans again. I just felt a sense of relief, and like any kind of social faux pas I might make as an autistic person, I could pass off as just being doofe Ami, like it was a language problem, comprehension problem. It was a nice dodge.
I see.
So, yeah.
So do you think you would feel that way, like in another country where maybe English wasn't the first language? Like, do you think you'd feel that level of comfort elsewhere, or is it specifically German?
I've heard that Japan is also kind of like in the autistic community kind of regarded as an autistic nation in a way, like the national characteristics kind of mirror autistic traits in a way. And of course, I'm a big Japanese anime fan, so that tracks.
Very interesting. And so, what made you support Polite Conversations?
Well, long-time fan, first-time caller, and I've been a non-believer since elementary school, basically. My dad was a science teacher, and so religion never really had a chance with me. I did, although I do say that with the caveat that during graduate school, I did have a very brief, intense religious phase, and then quickly grew out of it and worked my way back to humanism. So, but I've been a non-believer and for a long time, and very much believe in secularism and a secular society.
And how do you feel about like the different ways that I cover the atheist scene? I assume you're not too offended by my criticism?
No, not at all. I think you're probably one of the best, most progressive atheist podcasters out there, and so I support you. And I still listen to Thomas Smith, but it's just kind of funny because
oh dear,
but it feels like, I mean, he's okay, but it feels like he's like a year out of date with you. Like he's just now realizing that Sam Harris is trash. So,
well, do you remember this massive controversy that went on like 2 years ago? Was it 2 or was it 3? I think it was 2021.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah,
I was on your side in that one too. So,
well, I appreciate that. The MergeGate thing was really eye-opening, and then there's also the Me Too scandals and such. So, very icky.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, thank you for supporting, and I think it's so funny that you said that he's like 2 years out of date, or because that tracks. And what about you, Claus? What makes you support the show?
We're part of my latest transition in how I think about certain stuff. You and a bunch of other people just pushed me across certain hurdles, I guess, and just appreciated that. And you had a patron, and I thought that's a fun account to support. And I generally like when you piss off people like Sam Harris and these kinds of people, and I like to take count of that very much. Cool. And like you assure your dad at the beginning of every polite conversation, you never say anything controversial and you're never impolite. So that's what I like about you.
Yeah, that's definitely very true. Never controversial. Just, yeah. Well, thank you very much. And Ilyas, you are not a non-believer from what I recall, right?
Well, according to myself, but if you ask like your everyday Salafi, I'm totally a non-believer.
Yes, I mean, I was reading about how ISIS was calling like Hamas infidels too. So
yeah, of course, yeah. Like Hamas is basically the new atheist convention compared to Daesh.
Oh, but you've been a long-time patron of the show as well. What makes you support the show?
Well, I discovered you through Twitter, and I will continue calling it Twitter. And
same.
Basically, it was like it kind of happened during my still ongoing and potentially eternal journey dealing with my religious tradition, where I was always leaning more towards progressive and liberal interpretations of the theology because my parents raised me in a really secular way. And my parents are both believers. My father actually converted out of belief, not because of my mother, but they still raised me without religion, quote unquote. Like, they didn't raise me atheist, but they raised me I was never taken to a mosque. I was never actually expected to perform any rituals. I wasn't even really aware of Islam for a really long time in my early childhood. The first religion I was formally introduced to was Christianity, because I come from a really, really Catholic environment here in Germany. And so yeah, I kind of grew up and developed more and more towards liberal and progressive spaces among Muslims, but at a certain point I started to get alienated by certain views, and which were not related necessarily to theology, interestingly, but like to more political questions. And it was also a time where, like on, like for example, like Facebook groups of Muslim for Progressive Values and so on, like mostly English speaking, you also had like first direct interactions with ex-Muslims and so on. And
is that not where Asra Namani was from originally?
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
Gosh. Right.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So and basically when I discovered you on Twitter, I was seeing, ironically enough, more similarities in your particular struggle with that environment to my personal case, where that you do not necessarily, you still agree with the core idea and with the core criticism, same as in my case, but there is just so much dissonance within a particular movement, which in my case in particular, which I say like progressiveness and progressive outlooks, I'm completely behind this. But when it kind of turns towards like adapting ideas of Western supremacy, which liberal Muslim spaces are absolutely not immune to, specifically in Germany, I would say, then it gets really, really frustrating. And also, politically speaking, while I still am pro-feminism, pro-LGBTIQ rights, and so on, I would never ever call myself a liberal again, because the listeners cannot see my profile pic, but like I'm super hardcore leftist.
Right.
I would consider myself a Marxist, unorthodox, of course, but wouldn't be the first thing in my life which is quite unorthodox. So yeah, politically hard left-leaning, which alienated me from these liberal talking points, which are so dominant in many liberal Muslim spaces.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And so I guess you were like later in life searching for your Muslim identity?
Not really. It's a journey. Like I was introduced to it around elementary school, where I became aware that my family is something else, at least half of it. And I grew up in the environment of post 9/11. So it's also like if it's not just me getting aware of my heritage, is my environment getting aware of it and reacting to it. And you get asked weird questions in school, not just by students but by teachers. Like talking about one of the topics of today, like I'm not, as I mentioned before, my mother is from Morocco, so an quote-unquote Arab Moroccan family, but still a Moroccan family. I'm not Palestinian, but already like in school I was expected to kind of know about the whole issue of Palestine and Israel and so on, and also to have a stance on it. So this was really confusing for my early age.
Oh yeah, I bet.
To kind of get bombarded with all of these things, and something which is still confusing to me. I think as it's called white passing. Right. In many different ways. I don't look necessarily Middle Eastern. I have a German name. I got the name from my father. But the moment people find out, is always still until this day. It's weird. It's weird because people start to examine your face to see if they can recognize it, and then they start to test you on it, and this kind of, like, for my early age forced me to I feel pressured by my environment to learn about this, to educate myself on the topic, because I just wanted to answer questions, not because necessarily to go on a spiritual journey. It kind of developed also into that direction, but until this day, I say, even though I still consider myself culturally and spiritually and in a philosophical way a Muslim, I choose to study religious studies, not Islamic theology, for a particular reason, because it's still more like the subject of my studies in that sense. I wanted to study it in a secular way, and it's still kind of stuck with me until this day. So yeah, it's like a weird chimera, complex thing.
Just through like a quick Google search that I was doing, like I can see there are so many articles about like how pro-Palestinian opinions were like very unwelcome in German schools. Kafiyas are totally not acceptable, and this is pre-October 7th even. And I read about this one girl who was just like, told to give her background or something like that. Like she's standing in front of the class saying, "Oh, I'm Palestinian," and her teacher got mad at her and said, like, "You can't say that." And obviously it was upsetting for her. Like, what is she supposed to say? Apparently she's supposed to say she's Israeli or something. I don't know, but
some will say Israelis, and some will say you should call yourself Jordanian.
Yeah.
Kind of depends on who you ask.
So this is not new at all. Like it's
No. This is old story. It's just really like this morning I had a kind of a frustrated episode, because you're starting to get numb. And even if you are as a person who lives here in Germany, even if you are completely on the side that this is fucked up, this is completely wrong, you get used to it. It's just nothing new to you. And what happened since October 7th is that the rest of the world is kind of starting to catch up. It got some attention the years prior. Recently, it first started to get attention with the case of Masha Gessen.
Yeah.
And then after that, even more so when Germany said it would intervene in the ICJ as a third body. And then like the world started to kind of ask themselves, wait, what's going on there exactly? And like we know we are kind of used to these kind of stories, but yeah, like we should never get used to them.
It's shocking being on the outside.
It's just not normal. It's really, really fucked up. But it's completely institutionalized here, and on a political level, on a media level, and
and across the political spectrum, it seems.
Yes, there's still more opposition in the hard left to it, but not. It's not like a position which should be taken for granted, even in the hard left.
Yeah.
Also, if I may interject, one problem you have that the people in Germany who are critical of Israel and who are not like certified right-wing assholes, many on the left who dare to go against the consensus also unfortunately happen to be full-blown tankies, I guess. If you're tanky, you have got nothing to lose, right? So you have these very extreme positions, and I think you notice that when you go on Twitter, and I'm very careful about who I amplify with my tiny account, who I retweet, because Palestinians have just the most horrible allies sometimes.
There are some terrible people that are kind of cashing in on this and using it to rebrand their accounts. But Claus, what's it like in your experience generally as a non-part Arab? Like, how was it in school? Like, is that a tension that you noticed, or?
That's a long way back. I had very different beliefs when I was in school. I mean, I was hardcore right-wing, raised that way. Oh, yeah. So I would have had no time for... I think until I was about 17, 18, 19, I would have had little time for Ilyas, because he wasn't German and lived in Germany, and that would...
But he is German.
Well, not by my standards back then. Because you have to understand... Even by German law, until recently, if your parents weren't certified Germans, i.e. the ancestors born on a certain territory before a certain date, or you weren't a great soccer player, becoming a German citizen was really, really difficult.
But I assume that Ilyas was a German citizen, like from birth, right?
Sure. Except he has Arab ancestors, so to the normal quote-unquote standard issue, run-of-the-mill box standard German, it doesn't matter what his one parent is, he is at best half German, and that is the attitude Elias probably gets a lot from Germans who don't take him as a full-blown German, because you still have an ethnic identity assumption behind German. Right, Elias?
That's absolutely true. I don't have the everyday experience of like a German citizen, which parents have been like migrants from some place, because it's not in my name. I have only a German passport, and I inherited the name from my father, so it makes things easier. As I said earlier, if people find out, I became the Moroccan, not like the Moroccan German, not the German Moroccan, not anything in between. I'm the Moroccan. I'm the Arab. There's even like something which you will hear on not just on AFD protests or something. You will hear this in your countryside pub pretty much every day when I talk about people with foreign heritage born here getting German citizenship. You will hear people like casually say, well, a mouse born in a horse stable is also not a horse.
Yikes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I remember when I put my episode on the far right in Germany out, I think John had some very interesting comments on that, and he was talking about how I think immigrants are not like viewed as German.
I remember very distinctly we were in a preparatory class for the PNDS, the test of German proficiency before you could be admitted to study, and one of our tutors being very adamant about Deutschland ist kein Einwanderungsland. Germany is not a country of immigration, and she was very, very insistent on that. And we were like, okay,
Yep.
and that's not taboo to say at all. Pardon?
Like
Germany. I mean, if you say Germany is not an immigration country, you're not some hardcore right-winger. You're a box standard German semi-conservative person who may even vote SPD.
Mm-hmm.
It's still acceptable. Yes, it's not that it gets without opposition. Like, of course, like let's say the quote unquote progressive left, like the center left, many will still criticize you openly for that, or at least say that there's an implication of racism here. But it's not that it's not a career killer or anything like that. Far from it. Like as Claus said, this is normal for like conservatives here in the country to say something like that.
Access this brand new Patreon exclusive series by becoming a patron today.